We have planted the seeds and watered the Spring Football Talk Show garden with yet another edition of Spring Football Has Sprung. Eugene Oba with you. Glad to see you. Glad to be here on week 3 of UFL action. This is going to be, I think, a great week. UFL ended week 2 earlier this week. UFL went up on a Tuesday. Not so sure about the attendance part of it in Dallas or outside of Dallas, technically, where the stadium is in Frisco. But hey, it is what it is. And what we're going to have happen on this show, I see all the complaints about the ESPN broadcasts. I may be on an island on this one, so we'll talk about those and what Rapoli has been doing as of late. Then, it may be a miracle, folks. Houston, are the gamblers now worth gambling on? We'll talk about that a little bit. And then,
how about this? Professional football making its return to Oklahoma in just a couple of years.
That's right. The United Football League, the UFL, announcing on Thursday that Oklahoma City will be the home of the new UFL team starting in 2028.
That's right, and that warrants that familiar sound. The Spring Football Has Sprung alert. Alert, alert, alert. Oh boy. Well, familiar I say, but we've only used this. This is the second episode that we've used this, but we may very well be using this a little while longer, because what's buried in that announcement, I've been in the journalism business a long time, and we have a term that's called burying the lead. And what's buried in all of this is that not only will the UFL be back for a 4th season on the back of this announcement, but also will be back for a 5th season as well. And what a watershed moment that will be. Now, I am very cautious about bringing out the confetti for this news, because as the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we have seen over the years, if you've followed spring football for a long time, you know that plans can go awry. Everybody's got a plan until they are punched in the mouth. But if there is anybody that I think that can really pull this stuff off, it is absolutely Mike Rapoli. No doubt that Mike Rapoli is the person that could really pull off this move in having Oklahoma City as a team. I think that in totality, I think this is great. Daryl Johnson, who has all of the charisma of Chamomile T, would not have pulled this off. He would not have pulled off this move. I think that this is definitely a watershed moment for the league. This is going to be the first non-NFL team, the first non-NFL league, I should say, that will move to a 4th season, head to a 5th season, and then have 10 teams. Remember that the original version of the USFL back in the 80s lasted 3 consecutive seasons, and that was 8 teams. And it could have been a 4th season had it not been for a certain somebody whose idea it was to move to the fall. And that kind of sort of reminds me about, I'm not sure if you saw the article from NBC, Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio, who suggested that, well, because it's not football season, that the UFL should move to the fall. If he actually knows his history of spring football and what entailed back in the 80s USFL, you will know that trying to be in the same space as the NFL in the fall would be a complete and total disaster. That you have to wonder whether Mike Florio is really a true football fan or a league stand. And I'm going to kind of sort of talk about league stands towards the end of the show. So do check that stuff out and stick around with me for that. But definitely, I do like the move, having the 9th team there. Having 10 teams. The 10th team has yet to be announced. Most likely it's going to be Michigan. Remember that the Michigan Panthers, they were the only ones that actually increased their attendance last year. So I would love personally to see Michigan back in this. Let me know what you think in the comments there. You look at Oklahoma, fourth highest median household income, only behind DC, Orlando, and Dallas, and they were one of the higher rated markets. Funny enough, for a city that has no team, they were one of the better markets. In fact, looking back at this UFL News Hub article, thinking about this, Tulsa and Oklahoma City were the 4th and 12th highest markets, respectively. So there is definitely huge potential in terms of the ratings front. I was looking at Reddit. There was a whole Google Trends thing that really shot up. So definitely they have a lot of runway in getting this stuff up and running, and I would really engage the Oklahoma Sooners. I would really engage those students. I said that young college students, I think, are the long-term move for growth in this league. I really do. So they have really 2 years to really engage them. And there's been a lot of talk I see about NFL markets versus not NFL markets. It seems that the move is non-NFL markets. I do think that there's a little too much hay in that, especially given St. Louis. They were a former NFL market. They ruled the roost. DC, second highest attendance in the league, is an NFL market. But it seems that if you look at Columbus, you look at Louisville, especially, those they are doing very, very well at the attendance front of it. So hopefully those guys pick up some wins, but definitely it seems that the move is non-NFL markets. And looking at some of the message boards, the excitement is there. I am going to temper my excitement for this, but in totality, I think if they stay on track with this, they really, really, really could have something here. And I think that this is going to be great, not just for the league, but also for the greater sports ecosystem. You know, there's a saying that goes that you cannot make an omelet without cracking a few eggs. And certainly Mike Rapoli, he has cracked quite a lot of eggs as it pertains to a lot of the changes in this league. And earlier this week, you probably saw a post on the Twitter sphere from him regarding, hey, send me your suggestions. Send me what's working, what's not working. No BS, anything like that. And I can tell you, let me give credit to Mike Rapoli for even putting this out there. Do you see Roger Goodell suggesting this stuff? Do you see Adam Silver suggesting anything to have fans provide feedback? Daryl Johnston, who's a grandfather clock in an Apple Watch world, did you hear him asking about feedback? Oh no. So credit to Mike Rapoli for even doing this. And I see a lot of the complaints about the ESPN broadcast, too many sideline interviews, all the stuff about betting, that sort of thing. And look, honestly, of the ABC ESPN approach to the UFL in terms of the broadcast part of it versus the Fox FS1 part of it, I personally prefer the ABC ESPN approach. It's a lot more fun. And folks, let me remind you, this is not the NFL. This is a disruptor league. Things don't have to be so serious. My business partner, she will tell me, Eugene, things are not that deep. Life is not that deep. Things don't have to be so serious all the time. Now, you did notice that on Sunday, Easter Sunday, some of the elements in terms of some of the sideline stuff and some of the interviews was kind of sort of toned down a little bit. I don't know whether that's a function of the crew or whatever it is. But again, I find the broadcasts on the ABC and ESPN just to be a little bit more fun. Sometimes in life, you have to lean into a little bit of the absurdity of things. And B, look, I'm not precious about the whole gambling aspects of the broadcast, mentioning the over, the under, DraftKings, or whatever the case may be. Now, look, DraftKings is a sponsor, by the way, of the league. And I think that in terms of drawing casual fans into the mix, it's like, come on. you have to have entry points. And if sports betting is the way to do it, if mentioning all the stuff from DraftKings is the way to do it, then my goodness, so be it. So be it. And as I said, you have to lean into kind of sort of the fun of it and the absurdity of things. I mean, think about the Pop Tart Bowl, right? Pop Tart Bowl, this whole stuff with sacrificing a Pop Tart and that sort of thing. Yeah, it is wild. It is crazy. But guess what? The Pop Tart Bowl is the second highest non college football playoff bowl game that there is. It's only behind the Cheez It Bowl. You think that a bowl with Cheez Its in its name is really serious? The answer to that is no. I mean, come on now. Notre Dame, they were so precious about being in the Pop Tart Bowl. It's like, oh, we're Notre Dame. We can't all be in the Pop Tart Bowl. We're too good to be in the Pop Tart Bowl. I'm like, come on, guys, Notre Dame fans, you haven't won a natty since the Reagan administration. So, I mean, don't be so serious about this. Have some fun in your life, for goodness sake. I mean, look, it's kind of like almost the Pop Tart Bowl is almost like the equivalent of the soap opera Passions, if you really think about it. Remember this, for those of you who were into soap operas, Passions was crazy. It was not Young and the Restless. They had Hell in the Closet. They had a 300-year-old witch and a doll. All kinds of wild, wild stuff on Passions. But again, you have to embrace this stuff, and all the soap opera purists was like, oh, they were, doubting Passions. But I can tell you that you have to embrace things sometimes for what they are, not what they should be. So there's that. And here's what's also interesting for me. When I looked at the numbers last year between ABC and Fox in terms of the ratings, what's interesting is that on average, the Fox broadcast, if you combine the averages of Fox and FS1 and then the ABC and ESPN broadcast, interestingly, the Fox FS1 broadcast on average last year drew slightly more than what ABC and ESPN did. Slightly more. But the one game, and actually, I'll get to the one game in a second, but I just looked at the numbers of the games that had at least 900,000 viewers. ABC and ESPN, they had 5 games that had above 900,000. Fox last year only had 1. And the one game that did score above 900,000, actually over a million, that had a lead in the Indy 500. So my thinking is that you have to kind of sort of put an asterisk on the Fox number. If you even took out the 1.2, 1.3 million from last year, then ABC, ESPN has a higher average. So you tell me, 5 games for ABC that got over 900K versus the one game from Fox, which was aided by a lead-in. I think that having the 5 games is, I think, better for the league. Higher numbers, especially in the key demo, means more revenue, advertising, and really more money for the league. And you love to see that. And I'm going to put out a little bit of a theory, by the way, when it comes to ratings and contextualizing the ratings of the UFL. And that is, look, I think that comparing the UFL to other sports properties, be it NHL, NBA, even thinking about the NCAA with March Madness that ended earlier in the week, those are good comparisons. But I think the better comparison, really, and I think that when you look at some of this stuff here, the UFL does compare favorably to some of these stuff. I mean, you look at the average of the NHL right now, 795,000 viewers. UFL last year averaged 625,000. NBA averaged 1.5 million. MLB 1.9 million. So it compares favorably, I think, to those properties, but I think the better comparison to make here in all of this is actually to NFL preseason games. And the reason I say NFL preseason games is that the quality of the games, I think, in the UFL are probably closer to preseason NFL games than anything else, in the vast majority of instances, at least. And when you think about the audience that watches preseason games, those people tend to be a little more diehard about watching football. Remember, NFL, when you look at the numbers that the NFL gets, it's mostly a casual audience. And last year, preseason NFL games averaged 2.2 million. 2.2 million. So the closer that the UFL gets to that average of 2.2 million, that's a very good thing. The last time, by the way, that a game since the 2020 iteration of the XFL averaged anything more than what, or anything close to what the average is for preseason NFL games last year was in the USFL, when the Kentucky Derby was deleted. And remember, the USFL, in many ways, I've said this, with the exception of gameplay, everything else about it was not particularly great. So I think that I am very, very bullish on, at least from what we have seen so far, the numbers insofar as what can be achieved for this league. And as long as these numbers do not crater, as long as we don't start getting 100,000, even like 200,000, that sort of thing, then I think we are golden. But I think that the best comparison in terms of these ratings is not so much to other sports properties, although it's kind of sort of fun, but I think really it is to NFL preseason games. I think that really should be kind of sort of the target, and perhaps I would even say for the UFL, probably the ceiling, especially when you consider that most NFL fans are casual fans. Most NFL fans are very casual about their fandom and all in terms of watching, these games. So I think that, again, 2.2 million average for preseason games, and I think anything that gets close to that, I think is fantastic. And another thing that was fantastic to see this past Easter, I mean, who could write a script like what happened in Houston? I mean, boy, that was such a fun game to actually watch. It really was. And I think that game really is, if you have friends that have not watched the UFL quite yet, I think that game, show them the highlights at least. That game is an entry point, especially at the end. And I think it is better for the league to have close games like this. Very unpredictable. Anything can happen. Birmingham, they couldn't stop the run. They could not stop the run in this. And I think but for that, they would have been way up in this. And again, the use of the challenges by both coaches, especially with AJ McCarron, who, again, I emphasize on this show, rookie coach, that was actually very good. It really was. I mean, it changed. I think that really changed the tenor of the game. I mean, it really, really, really did. So when you win, Houston, I think, definitely needed this win. And as the saying goes, I say this a lot. You can ask any of my friends. When you win, you have friends. And the hope is that on the back of Houston's win, because going into this game, Houston was the worst team in the league by far. Now the game against DC coming up this weekend, and I'll have my prediction in the pickup segment, that game has become more interesting. It really, really, really has. So I'm excited to see where Houston goes in this. And I love the discourse that has been happening about even the attendance part of it. Again, I think when you win, you have friends, and I think that this really helps. This should help Houston, hopefully, going down the line. I think that the discussion of attendance, I actually kind of love it. I think people are very passionate when they're talking about attendance in this league. They really are. And I love to see it because it shows the passion. It shows that kind of sort of, I hate to be corny about this. It kind of shows that, hey, we're all in this together in terms of trying to build this league, hopefully get this league into a fourth season. So it's kind of like, hey, everybody has got to do their part. And especially in the state, what's remarkable is that, remember, Texas, they are very hardcore about football. I mean, high school football, wow. You look at some of these high school stadiums, I mean, wow. They rival even some of these college stadiums. So, again, credit to Houston on the win. I liked seeing it. And I think from a television standpoint, in terms of the drama that it creates, in terms of the challenges, which you can use at any point in the game. Remember that in the NFL, you cannot use the challenge in the last 2 minutes. I think was just really, truly, truly remarkable. All right, 3 out of 4 correct in the pickup, just like last week. So let's see maybe if I can finally get 100% in week 3 on these picks, starting with the Storm and Kings tonight. Now, I'm somebody who I really have been very, very bullish on Louisville as a incredible market for the league. And it's one of those things, it's like, yes, I'd like to see Louisville win, but I think the Storm have got the better roster and the more experienced coach. Again, so far in this league, remember in 2023, it was 6-24 for first-year coaches in this league. Now, so far, when you take together all the record of these rookie coaches, it's 1-6. And sadly, I expect the losses to continue for the rookie coaches in this. So I will definitely have the Storm winning this stuff here tonight. The Gamblers and Defenders, noon on Saturday on ESPN. Home opener for DC. Audi Field, second highest attendance in the league behind St. Louis. The vibes are going to be great. You're going to have Wale performing. Defenders are back to their winning ways. I liked what I saw, especially on last Friday, and I expect those winning ways to continue. I mean, the Gamblers have become more interesting. You had that walk-off field goal to win, and I think this is going to be a more compelling game than this otherwise would have been. I thought that the Defenders would kick the tail of the Gamblers. Now, this should be a little more competitive matchup. Definitely, this could be, for DC, though, a bit of a trap game. And this could be one of the first trap games that we've had in this third season here of the UFL. So watch out. And Jordan Ta'amu, you better stay upright, all right? So, but still, I think the Defenders are going to win this one. The Aviators Renegades, the first of a doubleheader on Sunday on ABC. Short week for the Renegades, but definitely these guys are looking like championship contenders. Maybe it's a little too early to say that perhaps it's going to be the Renegades and DC, just like it was in 2023, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But definitely, I think on a short week, the Renegades are going to take this one. Aviators, rookie coach, looks like a lost puppy out there. It's kind of sort of starting to remind me at this point where, on LinkedIn, maybe you lie on the resume to get the job, and then once you actually get the job, you are kind of sort of being found out. And I think that's what's happening, sadly, with the Aviators. And that's a pity, because I think the Aviators, I'd also like them to win. I think it's better buy-in for the league, but I think in actuality, the Renegades are going to win. I think Tyler Vaughn's, what a day for him. Really, really fantastic stuff to see. Again, Renegades win on a short week, and then the Stallions battle Hawks, the late game, 3 p.m. The optics of the Dome are going to be great for the Battle Hawks. It's an interesting one. AJ McCarron and the Stallions, they lost a narrow one during Easter. So it's going to be an interesting watch, but I'm going to take the Battle Hawks at home with that crowd by a squeaker, slightly more experienced coach. I'll put my bets on the Battle Hawks for a victory on Sunday. Okay, so as we get ready to wrap this episode up, I just want to take a quick second to thank everybody on behalf of the Common Sense Entertainment team that produces the show, to really thank everybody for their incredible, and I mean incredible, support of this program. I mean, I can honestly tell you that we have really done something with this show. The way that all of you are responding to this, and especially on the Spring Football Has Sprung Twitter page or X page, whatever it is, the way that you all are engaging with the content is just really, for our team, a sight to behold. And just know that it is greatly appreciated, and especially with our series premiere with John Lewis. And John Lewis, he is the man. He is the man. He is the real deal. It goes to show that, especially when you think about the fact that John has been in the business, has been in this in the sports world, in this sports journalism space for as long as he has. I mean, it goes to show that there's still a lot of value in experience. It really is, and it's just great to see. So again, I mean, I have been loving the energy that so many of you have really brought to this show, and it really keeps us going. And we're going to continue to keep going with this show. And we're going to go a little bit differently next week, because next week we are not going to do a full show like this. But what we are going to be doing next week is that we are going to have of course, our shorts, our bonus content that you are going to see. Some of you have already been seeing Spring Football Has Sprung OT, where I will have my near instant reaction to some of the games. So do check out the shorts page on this channel, youtube.com/the CSE channel/shorts. Be sure to check that stuff out, and make sure you subscribe, by the way, so that you are the first to see those shorts when they drop. But we have been doing that. We'll continue to do that. And we will also next week will debut Spring Football Has Sprung, the 2-minute drill. And what that will be is that it will be basically a miniature version of this program. Now, I cannot guarantee that we will hit the 2-minute mark, but it will be a very condensed version of what you see on this show, my takes on all of the developments of the week. And we'll do maybe a miniature version of the Pick'em segment, that sort of thing. So definitely we're going to do this a little differently. Next week, we had announced that we were going to be doing these full shows the first 3 weeks of the season. Then we will alternate full shows every other week until the playoffs, where we will go weekly until the week after the championship. And we may tweak that a little bit. I think the success of the show may very well warrant a little bit of a tweak to that schedule. But for right now, next week we will have the shorts all ready for you guys. So definitely be sure to join us, no matter what it is, every week for some version of Spring Football Has Sprung. So again, very grateful, because really, if you think about it, those of you who have been watching alternative football for a long time, and for me, who's been been seeing this develop for the past few years, we're swimming up against the current. I mean, again, I mentioned in the first week, you've got CFL snobs, You've got NFL snobs. And by the way, I have to say, on the Spring Football Has Sprung Twitter, you had one guy who was saying that the UFL is unwatchable football league. That the UFL is unwatchable, and then I see that this guy he supports the Carolina Panthers, which I mean, talk about watchable. I mean, when you're the 26th winning percentage team, 26th highest team that wins in terms of the regular season in the NFL out of the 32 teams, then it's like I cannot take people seriously. People who dog on the UFL, and yet you support teams like the Carolina Panthers, the Jets, the Browns. And let's just kind of point out something here, by the way. I'm going to pull this up. The Panthers, in terms of win percentage in the regular season, they are 26th. They're higher than the Texans, Falcons, Jets, Jaguars, Cardinals, and the Bucks. So you want to talk about, unwatchable. I mean, again, next time you see people dog on the UFL, ask them which NFL team they root for. And if they root for the Panthers, the Jets, Browns, I'm not even sure that Shedeur Sanders is going to save that. If you're a fan of any of those NFL teams and you like to, you have the absolute temerity to say that the UFL is unwatchable, then I cannot take you seriously. Cannot take you seriously. But again, I love the passion of the UFL community. The energy has been really, really superb. So again, a huge thanks to everybody for watching the show. But we're going to keep this stuff going. Subscribe, ring the bell, youtube.com/the CSE channel. Really appreciate your support. And definitely, in the meantime, please don't fumble in the end zone.